our series that we have supporting the St. Pete College Visual Arts Faculty Exhibition for 2024. And we've had a wonderful array of faculty speaking on all sorts of topics and bringing their professionalism to St. Pete College and showcasing their careers and their teaching philosophies in our museum. Kevin's going to be exploring his work and his teaching philosophy. We're really excited to learn more. The final talk in this series will be next Thursday, December 7th, with Jim Hagenbuckle, who is a professor emeritus of the college who taught here from 1969 to 1999. So I hope that you guys will come back. He has influenced generations of artists, including some of the faculty that are sitting here in this room, like Kim Kirchman. So I hope that you will come back because I think that will be a very, very special program. So before I introduce Kevin, I just want to give you a little bit of background about him. Kevin Grass grew up in St. Genevieve, Missouri, a small river town about 1 hour south of St. Louis. Since there were no art supply stores nearby, his father, who worked as a grocery clerk, bought brown bags home, which he used for drawing paper. I can attest that brown bags are not archival, so I hope you upgraded at that point. Using number 2 pencils and ballpoint pens, he worked obsessively without instruction to master representational drawing skills. In high school, he created a wide variety of commissioned works, ranging from portraits and landscapes to lettering for campaign signs. One of the murals he did in downtown that he assisted with still exists today. After becoming valedictorian of St. Genevieve High School, he studied at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, where he received an undergraduate degree in drawing and painting in 1990 on a full academic scholarship. At the University of Georgia, he met his beautiful future wife, Michaela Oberlander, sitting in the audience. And by the way, Michaela is also a wonderful, wonderful asset to the museum as a professor in humanities. And she leads her students through many tours here, which is really, really wonderful. So we appreciate that they both support the museum and educate our students, and there's a wealth of knowledge. So thank you for all you do. So they met in a Northern Renaissance art class at University of Georgia. That course had an extensive impact on Kevin's life because it also introduced him to the narrative symbolism and the meticulous techniques of the Flemish masters that influence his work today. Kevin taught art full-time at Gordon College in Barnesville, Georgia, and did corporate art commissions, regional juried shows, and had his first solo museum exhibition. In August 1997, he moved his family to the Tampa Bay region to accept a teaching position at St. Petersburg College. He still teaches here full-time as an associate professor of art at the Clearwater campus. For Kevin's teaching philosophy, just as writers must learn grammar and punctuation, visual artists must first master a basic vocabulary of symbols and techniques to successfully express their ideas. Most beginning art students have little familiarity with the fundamental systems for visual communication. When teaching foundation level art courses, it is best to start with simple elements as the means to explore the basic problems of representational drawing. While many students may see the mastery of representational techniques as their ultimate goal, others will use their academic drawing skills to explore more abstract or conceptual approaches to creative artwork. I have to say that Kevin is an artist's artist. You cannot say that about every artist that you meet. And I have the utmost respect for Kevin, not only in his teaching philosophy, but how he's mastered these skills and how he has carried on this tradition, teaching the fundamentals to students for generations to come. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Kevin Grass.
How's everybody doing tonight? You can hear me, right?
Yes.
All right, I don't need a mic. I'm Kevin Grass. I've been teaching here since '97. I teach drawing. God, it's Thursday and I've been in classes too long. I almost forgot what I teach. Drawing, figure drawing, and painting. Down on the Clearwater campus. The work that you're going to see here is related to or is the work that you see over in the show right now. And I mean, when you look at this, how can you not just be happy and smile, right? Right? I started this series called Lame Ducks in 2019. I was really getting tired of all of the objects that my students were having to paint in the painting class, because I have to paint those every semester. So I thought, well, I want to do something a little different for my demonstration that I'm doing. So my wife had some rubber ducks in, I think it was in the bathroom. And I took them to the down to the campus and set them up and started to do a painting for the demonstration. And not long after that, my wife and my son Nicholas, who's also here, and I were sitting around while watching Law and Order and started coming up with all these ridiculous puns that had to do with either the word duck, dock, bird, fowl, quack, you know, all these words related to ducks. And I thought, oh my God, this could be a series. Because at that time I had been painting these figure paintings, and nothing is harder than trying to sell figure paintings that are large scale, that are really expensive, that are usually about social issues. I could sell them, but it's tough. It's really tough to sell. So I was looking for something more commercial anyway. And when we came up with all these titles, one of the things we came up with was Lame Ducks. I said, well, that's perfect, because the titles we were coming up with were lame jokes. People call them dad jokes. And it just fit with kind of the feel for the whole series, this kind of silly, tongue-in-cheek subject matter. The whole idea behind Lame Ducks, I'll go to the next image, is, this is not Lame Ducks. I forgot I had this. When I did figure paintings, I always had to work from photographic references, because for me to do a painting, as you can see with these, and better as you can see with the ones in the show, because seeing them in person is much better, they take forever. And I cannot afford to have a model pose for the length of time that I need to do the painting, and I don't want to make stuff up. So I had to work with photographic references. But the problem with that is that the photographs don't do justice to skin tones. So I found that I had to invent a lot whenever I was doing the paintings. But these were two that kind of went with the figure painting series, where I could actually set everything up in my studio, light it there, and work from life. And what a nice change, right? I didn't have to make things up. I could see a lot more stuff. I could get the colors more accurate. I'll never forget when Nicholas's friend, one of his friends, came over, and they were kind of doofing around. He comes in, Ryan, and he looks at the skull painting, and he looks at the skull that's sitting in there. He said, Mr. Grass, that painting looks more like the skull than the skull. It's like, thank you. That's right. But I enjoyed that so much that I thought, well, it'd be nice to come up with a series, but at that time I hadn't come up with anything. So those were the first two paintings in the series. That was the one I set up in the painting studio. I had a sheet of plexiglass because I wanted it to look like water, that I put onto a blue sheet of cloth that served as the ground plane, the water, and also the sky. And I called that one Getting Your Ducks in a Row, or Getting All Your Ducks in a Row. And that's the one I did as a sample for my students. So I started it, they could see how I blocked stuff in. And what was nice about that is that I could then see if I would actually be able to stand painting these things again and again and again, because I got to paint 12 of them, right? Not just 6, because you got all those reflections. And one thing that I realized when I painted them was that I really had never used bright yellows in my paintings before. So it was really a lot of fun for me to be able to do that. And these first 2 paintings, I was actually thinking more about doing it like some of the photorealists do, where it's kind of cartoony and kind of bright colors and kind of simple. Well, simple to some extent. When you look at the tape, it's not really that simple. It's got all the little depressions in it. So I thought that was going to be the way that the series was going to go, but it wasn't, because it was boring. I wanted to do things that were more challenging. But the whole idea with these 2, getting your ducks in a row, was a literal interpretation. Literal. We know it doesn't mean literally getting your ducks in a row, but the point was, it's about language. What does, if somebody heard that and they were just learning English from another country, this is what they would think of. They wouldn't be thinking of what we are actually intending to mean when we say it. So it's in some of them, at least, are literal interpretations of these everyday sayings that we hear all the time. And how, if you actually interpret them literally, they don't look anything like the intended meaning. Duct tape, right? I could probably do 100 versions of duct tape and have them on all in different orientations. Again, duct tape, we know it's the tape. When you put the ducks in there, you can, I mean, I tried to make it look like one was in a nest and the other one like they're playing or something like that. When I'm doing these paintings, I'm trying to make them very different, theme-wise and color-wise as much as possible, because my initial, and I think even still today, idea was to try to have things for as many different parts of society as I possibly could, right? So nobody feels left out. It's all, everybody's being addressed. Unlike a lot of the fancy fine art, where it's just a very small minority of the world that gets addressed. Usually they're political or whatever. These are supposed to be mostly just fun. And the other thing is, I mean, they are sort of like pop art, because, you know, you're taking an everyday thing like Warhol did with the soup cans, and you're making a painting with it. But unlike pop art, I've seen things like this done where they do it as a cartoon. I didn't want to do that. Everybody does it as a cartoon. I wanted to do it in a more traditional kind of an approach. And as I've been doing more and more of these have started to become more and more sort of Northern Renaissance art kind of approach, as you're going to see, because I just can't help myself. They're all done with acrylic. It's done with traditional techniques. I draw everything on with either a pencil or with paint, and then I paint it in with the acrylic colors. I have to go over, especially the yellow colors, numerous times, because the colors are so transparent. You can't get these kinds of gradations in the first, second, or third layer. You got to do it again and again and again and again and again. Which is very similar to what you see with the oil painting techniques from Flemish painters and from people that follow Flemish painters today. And the acrylic does a great job with that. The new acrylics you can do that with. What's great about those is that they're non-toxic. Well, they're not as toxic. You don't have the thinners that you do with the oil paint. And the open acrylic stays wet quite a long time. So, but it dries quickly enough that if I want to do another pass over something, I can do it within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, unlike oil paint, where you got to wait for a week. Forget that. That's commercially not viable if you're doing a commission. You don't have that kind of time. So anyway, so yeah, the gradations that you see, some people are, is that airbrush? Absolutely not. My family can tell you a lot of cursing goes into these paintings. Lots and lots and lots. You can see the still lifes, how they're set up over there on the left, right? So sometimes everything that I put in the painting, I can set up in the still life. So you can see when I have flying ducks, I've got them propped up with wires. You can see that the flugelhorn is propped up with a clamp. Thank you. It's Thursday, I'm telling you. And you can see that when I did the painting, I didn't put all the folds in there. I just wanted to have the color in there because the color served as a good balance for the yellows that you see in the flugelhorn. Plus, I really like the way that the blue, when it reflected into the flugelhorn, made that really nice green color. So it made it something that was unexpected. This one is called foul play, right? So we think of that term. What do we think of? You know, you think about criminals or something, foul play. Not here, right? Here it's foul, literally playing. One of them's getting ready to play the flugelhorn. Those two up there are the ones that depress the buttons, right? At least that's how I saw it. As you can see, this is one of the later ones. When you're looking at how the horn's painted, it's very much like traditional fine art that you would see in a museum, but the silly sort of pop arty kind of subjects. Let's see what else about that one. I think that's it about that one. But you can see it's pretty much just copied from the still life in the studio. Those are the two that are in the show. You'll recognize one of those here, right? By the way, I got merchandise online. Christmas is coming up. So if you want something really unique to give to your family and friends, if you have people you don't like, there are some for them too, right? These two also were pretty much set up in the studio. With the one on the left, the ducks are pretty large on that 16 by 20 format. That's one of the few where I had to switch to oil paint because it was driving me crazy trying to get the gradations. And what happened when I switched to oil paint, Nicholas?
Do it again.
I switched to the oil paint thinking it'd be easier, and oh my God, what a stupid move that was. And I'm reminded again and again when I say I want to switch to oil paint, how stupid an idea that is. I mean, the gradations turned out nice, you know, but that one's called cluster duck, and the idea is that now that one obviously is not a reinterpretation of a term that's used all the time, but it's more like kind of the thing that happens when you get those edits when you're speaking into your phone, right? And the idea there was we have that one in the middle that's trying to go someplace, but all the other ones are trying to go places too. It's kind of like when you're driving in Pinellas County and nobody lets you in, right? But I use the blue background sort of as a like the pop artists will do with the really bright colors to set off the yellows. But otherwise, when you look at the gradations and stuff, and I think you'll agree, if you see this one in the gallery, the images just they're not as good as the painting. You got to see the actual painting. But it's a lot like, this one's a lot more like photorealism because it has that kind of airbrushed look, even though it's not. And this one I did set it up in the studio, but unfortunately with the cheese and the grapes, I don't get to paint that often. So because I teach full time, if I get to paint 2 or 3 times a week, it's a minor miracle these days. So when it's food, I have to photograph it and then work from the photographic references. The nice thing was, though, I was able to keep the cheese in the refrigerator. And when I was working from the photographic references, I could take the cheese out. Yeah, I had a cooler literally sitting next to me when I was painting it. Take the cheese out and work from life when I was painting that to get the colors right because the photos were awful. And then put it away when I'm done with it. And the same with some of the other stuff. And the ducks, you know, obviously I don't have to worry about them spoiling. So it was easy to deal with those guys from life. But my favorite ducks to use, that was something I was going to mention earlier, are these ducks that you see here, the Infantina ducks that you can find in most stores. I don't like to use ducks that already have outfits on them because I feel like that's kind of plagiarism. Somebody's already done it. I like it to be something that either I have to come up with or my wife has to come up with so that it's original. I like the fact that it forces us to have to be creative with how we solve the problem of creating the outfits for them. So I like to use ducks that are unadorned. I don't like to have any of that stuff already on them. One interesting thing about the compositions, you'll notice with this one that I don't know if I can get in front of the projector. Of course not. You guys notice that the shape of the cheese, that triangle in the center, and if you go from the bread up to the duck in the top and back down to the other one, you see how it's the same shape? You see how if you go from that duck up to the top of the glass and back down to the grape tomato, it's the same, just flipped. So there's a lot of stuff design-wise going on in there. You'll notice there are 4 ducks. 4 areas of cheese, 4 grape tomatoes. Why? I don't know. I thought it'd be kind of fun because people usually do 3 all the time, right? I thought 4 might be a little better because it'd be more interesting. So repeating that number, I thought would be kind of fun as something to put in there. Not many people would notice. But you'll notice again, when you're looking at the painting, it's you know, highly realistic down to the fact that you can see all the ducks reflected in the glass, which probably you can't see here, but you will be able to see if you go actually see the painting in the gallery. That one's called Cheese and Quackers. So anyway, all this stuff is stuff that we either have in the house or we go and we buy it. The one on the left, I could just paint from the still life. I did find out though that the tape, you can't, duct tape's awful. I had to actually staple it up onto the board that I was using so that I could have it set up the way I wanted to. That one is called duct taped. And I think that you guys know what it refers to from Miami. When was that? 2018, 2019? Catalan. His piece with the duct tape banana that he called Comedian. Right. When I showed that down there 2 years ago, I think it was the most photographed piece in that big art fair that we were in that particular year. People just, oh my God, that looks like such and such. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. Somebody actually thought it was an actual duck taped to the wall. No, it's a painting. Go look at it. You're not dealing with very bright people when you're showing down in Miami. But again, I did it, you know, as a tongue-in-cheek play on what he was doing. In this case, you know, obviously taking a rubber duck and taping it. And I wanted to create an X with the design, the duck's moving this way, the tape's moving this way, so that it activated the whole space without filling the space. And nothing is as fun, as painting all those little depressions in the duct tape. Nothing at all. I have a photorealist artist friend up in Detroit. He called me when he saw these paintings and he said, man, I wouldn't even do that. I said, well, I had to do it. It's there. So this is another one that's play on words. This one was another one, again, that was set up in the studio. It's called duck blind. If anybody's ever done any hunting, you know what a duck blind is. So again, it's, what do you expect when you hear the term? We know what to expect, but if somebody isn't really well-versed in English, then, well, there are the blinds that we got from Home Depot, right? And then there's the duck with the mask. So it looks like they're blind. They can't see. I put the camouflage in and the wood in to remind that it is something that relates to hunting, the camouflaging of the shelter for the hunters. And usually they use wood or some other material, and usually it's really rotted because they tend to not replace it to go with that. Again, the idea is to have fun with it. Be unexpected whenever you see what the title is. The title's just as important as the image itself. And on one hand, people that are well versed in art can have fun with it, but on the other hand, people that aren't can have fun with it. I know a lot of my family that don't know anything about art, when they see that and they say duck blind, would be on the floor laughing hysterically, right? Because they know what that is and they can relate to it. Unlike when we take them to museums, which doesn't happen often, and they don't understand any of it, because it doesn't relate to their experience. A lot of these things I have to build myself. That whole set I built. This is the stage. You guys see it? I built it out of leftover wood in the garage. So that's one of the other things about doing these paintings that I really like, is it's almost as much a part of the creative process to come up with how to do it as it is to paint it. I don't do any sketches ahead of time, because once I see the title of the sentence, once I see the title of the piece, I know what I want to do, you know. And then once I know what I want to do, I just start setting the ducks up and see what happens, right? That's my sketch, quote unquote. And then whatever I need, I'll build, or I'll get at a thrift store, or I'll look around the house and I'll find it. That one's called Duck the Halls. And my wife made all the little adornments, the hats and the little angel wings. And when I put the halos on, she says, "Well, I thought you were going to make them halos, not out of wire." I said, "No, I want them to look homemade. That's the whole point, is that they have to look, you know, high art likes to hide stuff. So I like, you know, I'll hide stuff with the technique, but, you know, with the goofiness of the presentation, I want to show it because that's what makes it kind of fun, right?" Most of it was painted from the still life. This, I actually had some wood flooring in the studio. I just looked down when I was painting that stuff and used that as the model. It's kind of fun. Oh, this one. You guys know about the ducking for Jeeps, right? People put the ducks on. Yeah, here's the model. There are two little guys in there. I had to cut them in half and stick them into the Jeep. So it's the Jeffrey Dahmer Yellow Rubber Ducks Jeep. So yeah, we bought this online because I wanted something that looked fairly realistic, and we had these little ones that were only ones that would fit to put in there. And we have these stones out by our koi pond that I used as the bases because I wanted it to look like a Jeep commercial kind of looking goofy thing. So the foreground and the Jeep are painted from life. And then the background, we went to a wedding in North Carolina and just had shot pictures. I thought, well, I shoot pictures, you never know what I'll use them for. And it just so happened I had that, oh, perfect. I want it to look like they climbed to the top of the mountain, and the lighting, I just lit this the same way the background was lit, and I did the background from the photograph. But you'll notice that this one doesn't have a helmet on. I have another duck that I have on the front of my bicycle. I ride my racing bike around the area a lot. And it has a little helmet on it. So I used that as my model for that. Because safety first, right? We got to have, right, Nicholas? Safety first. But anyway, with that one, sometimes a lot of the time I'll have ducks looking out. I like to have the viewer engaged directly. If they're not looking at you, it's more passive. If they're looking at you, it is more active. And the thing that you probably know about portraits, if you have a head in a portrait looking out directly at the viewer, the eyes follow you everywhere you go in the room. And lo and behold, the same thing happens with the ducks. So it's not such a bad thing. Because the Jeep was yellow, obviously I wanted a really cool background, which is why I wanted it on the mountains. North Carolina. Plus, I really like the mountains in Carolina. As I said before, they started going more and more Northern Renaissance. So I wanted to go ahead and do one that was, full blown, right? Kind of ode to Van Eyck. That's the still life over there on the left side. So I made the throne, and all that columns, I marbleized them, just PVC, right? And I made the little bases and the capitals for them. And then the background is a shot of Salisbury Cathedral, the interior. And the shot of the cathedral didn't have the same vanishing point as what I wanted. So I had to locate my vanishing point and change all that from photographs so it all went together. The tiles are the tiles that my wife has pointed out that I've used in several paintings from our house just simply because they're there, right? And the birds, we have a friend on Facebook who has some beautiful photographs of birds. So I contacted her, said, hey, I'm getting ready to do this painting. Can I use some of your birds? And she said, great. So we got her a print, and I used some of her pictures of cardinals because there was no way I was going to get any photos of those. So some of it's set up, some of it's from photographs. And I mean, you can see when you look at the cloth in here that it's not the same as what you see over there. I changed things up a little bit. I don't try that hard to make the faces and the ducks look like the ones in the still life because it's kind of fun if they always look a little different each time. By the way, that one's called Birds of Prey, P-R-A-Y. And if you know anything about the Catholic Church, those are the cardinals, right? And I had to put the bird seeds in, so it looked like they were there to have some fun, not to suffer. And I just brought these two in because they're a little different. I wanted to point out with that one on the left, we actually got to buy fake snow. It's I don't know what it's made out of, PVC material, I think, but it's fluffy, it's white. I stacked up a bunch of cloth. I put the fake snow on it like it was a hill. I took the little sled and I pushed it down through there, so I had the tracks in the snow. And those ice cubes are plastic ice cubes that are used by photographers when they're shooting pictures for advertisements. And of course, Michaela made, you know, the scarves and the hats, and I sprinkled the snow on top. I mean, it was so god awful cute, it was sickening, right? That's when I know I got it, right? When it is so god awful cute, it's sickening. That one's called Cold Duck. It's a drink that's made with wine and some other things. I think that's a German drink, right? So instead of it being the drink, it's the ducks out in the snow, so they're cold, therefore cold duck. But to make it remind you that it's a drink, I put the ice cubes in there for it too. So anyway, and I think that's the last one of the lame ducks I have. That one probably was the hardest painting because of all the toilet paper. I never realized how many little depressions there are in the high quality toilet paper until I painted that, right? That one's called What the Duck. And it's about COVID, because you can see the little COVID spore on the end of the staff. And it was about when all the people went and hoarded the toilet paper, and we were all asking ourselves why, you know. So I thought just make it What the Duck, and I didn't know what I was ever going to do for What the Duck, and that was when it came to me. And so we bought that little toilet online and had the duck sit on it. And I was thinking about putting really tiny rolls of toilet paper in there, which I should have done because then I wouldn't seen the textures. But I was like, oh, no, I want to do it so that's the same, you know, the right scale in relation to the ducks. Stupid, stupid, stupid. And we got the mask on this one down here, so you could tell it's, you know, from that COVID time. But the staff and the crown came from some online references because I wanted it to look like he was the king of COVID. But anyway. All right, so All Dolled Up is the next series that goes with the lame ducks because it's not really puns so much, but it's more tongue in cheek, a little more highbrow, but not so much. And the Barbie painting that you see in the gallery comes from that. The idea, I wanted to do it a long time ago. Like, what, about 25 years or more ago, I wanted to do that painting that's in the gallery. But I just knew I couldn't pull it off. Just couldn't do it then. But it comes from paintings in the history of Western art, like the Limburg brothers calendar pages that you see over on the left, and my favorite, Jan van Eyck, that you see over on the right. That's a detail of one of his paintings. And in that transition from the Gothic to the Renaissance period, the artists were still, when they came to painting faces, inventing them, right? They were still using those same faces that the late Gothic artists were using. and the same proportions. So as a result, you can see how stretched out they get in the Limburg Brothers painting. And you can see how simple and kind of unrealistic they are here. I mean, if we took the Virgin Mary's head and measured how tall her body is, you know, Shaquille O'Neal would probably be impressed, right? Very much doll-like. And it was fascinating, right? To see how it was like that in those older paintings. You even see it in Titian's painting, but a contemporary artist, John Curran, does this in his work. That's his over there on the left. I believe that those figures in his painting are life-size figures, but you can tell that they also have those doll-like proportions because he takes his techniques and his proportional proportions for his figures also from sort of that Northern Renaissance style of art. And you can see it makes things kind of creepy in his painting, right? So I thought, well, why not? Whose are more out of proportion than Botticelli's? Because when you look at his, again, the women don't look realistic at all. The men are a little bit better, but there's such a huge amount of idealization, and the women all look like they're the same woman painted again and again and again. So I thought, and I love this painting. Don't get me wrong, right? I love it. But it's so out of whack. I thought years ago, I'd love to reinterpret that with Barbies. What a great idea. So you can see here is the, first of all, I got two of them here. So I've never seen my wife smile as broadly from ear to ear as she did when she got to make these outfits for these guys. She was in her element. And unfortunately, she had to do this one two-sided because I had to have the little side with the stars on it. But I mean, she knocked herself out. We went down to, we took the reproduction of the Botticelli down to Joanne Fabrics, right? We went through all the fabrics to pick out things that we thought were going to work and to pick out bling for them that we thought would work too. And then we bought these Barbie dolls. They have a whole series that Mattel did just for Amazon that have bendable joints that you can pose perfectly. And so we finally got one for Ken for the next one, but I needed something that I could actually pose or they'd look like corpses. And these were really great, but she did a really great job with these. If you get a chance, you'll want to take a look at them and then go look at the paintings and see how they're different. Because one thing that I did was when it comes to this, these gold attachments is I shrunk a lot of that stuff down so it's not as wide because it just looks too heavy. And a goofy thing about Mattel's Barbies is when you look at their eyes, they're really big. And I hate anime. So I shrunk those down too, so that they were a little bit more believable when I did the painting. But you can see when I set it up in my studio. I had the reproduction there. And I got wire. I put a board underneath it, stuck a bunch of wires in it, and then I set them up and used the wires to keep them up. For 7 months, they were up. I put a black background behind it just so that'd make it easier to see them whenever I was painting them. And so I had that setting up and I had my easel right next to it. I could get as close as I wanted to get. These ended up being these fake flowers that you could get at Joann's. They're perfect size. And in the actual painting, they have flowers growing there, but I thought it'd be fun if it looked like she's just kind of throwing flowers all over the place. So. It was a good time setting that up. Wasn't such a good time painting it. It started out well, but it took forever. It took 7 months. The Barbie dolls were painted from the Barbie dolls. Oh, we can't call them Barbie dolls. We have to call them dolls, right? That's right. Fashion dolls. Or we'll be sued. Fashion dolls. So, but the background in Botticelli's painting, his background is lame. So I wanted something that had space in it, was rich. I wanted the background to be about Florida, Orange Grove, obviously. And I wanted it to be as much of a subject as the dolls themselves. So you can see all these were, I think, all the photos I used as subjects for the background. And we looked at the Barbie babies, they were horrible. So instead I went to Raphael and I picked his very muscular Arnold Schwarzenegger-ish baby and thinned it down a lot and used that for the one on top of the painting. But so when you look at the actual painting, it's this stuff in the background pieced together, right, to make that space. And I pieced it together so that when you're moving through the background, you can see it kind of undulates. It's kind of a wave that goes through there. I did that on purpose so that it would kind of move you through the space. So that was painted from those, more or less. I told somebody, I said, when you look at that painting, you got to look at that closely because each leaf is a portrait of that leaf. Why did you do that? Well, because I wanted the orange grove to be important, right? And when you look at the Barbie dolls, I wasn't sure how I wanted to do them. First, I had the joints in them. And then after thinking about it, discussing this with a certain person, it seemed like a better idea to take them out. And so you can see that the joints have been removed from all of them. And I even put a nipple on Ken. Oh my God. Right? And again, the faces aren't exactly copied from what's there. You know, I think that the one in the center, underneath the flying figure, to me looks a lot like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Poldark series on PBS, the girl that played Demelza. I think it looks just like her as a Barbie doll. All of a sudden, these people started looking like other people. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to go with it. So. And then I got some pictures of some eagle wings and attached those to Zephyr over on the right-hand side. It had to be done in pieces. I actually painted all the figures, blocked all those in first with a black background for the ground and the background space, because I knew I wanted it darker. So painting those things on top of black or dark green was better. But I didn't want to do that with the dresses because it would take too many layers to get the diaphanous fabrics to look like they had light on. And probably the hardest thing to do in that painting are those white sheer fabrics that you see there, because not only do you have to paint the folds, you're also painting, well, sometimes you see the outside of it, and sometimes you see through it, sometimes you see through it more. And I wanted to see through it, but I didn't want it to be obscene in the way you see through it, because I didn't want, I don't want to, so to speak, I don't want to piss Mattel off, right? I just want to, use it as a subject for the painting. But the idea wasn't that I'm repeating the symbolism in the painting. I don't care. The idea is that, here's this painting done with these dolls, where the dolls, in some instances, look more like flesh and blood than some of those paintings that you see from that time period. And it's also about the ideal of beauty. That those women they're painting in those paintings are their ideal of beauty. They weren't using models necessarily. And so what's our ideal of beauty now? Well, one could simply say, well, yes, Barbie is an ideal of beauty now. Well, fashion dolls are an ideal of beauty now. And so using them instead, it's kind of, it's about that too. How does the ideal of beauty change? Or in the case of women, how does it not change? How is it the same as it was before? And just having fun with it. Another reason that I did it is so that, people that don't know a lot about art, but they're really into the pop art kind of thing with the Barbies can see it. And then they find out it's a Botticelli painting. And then they go look at Botticelli's work and they get exposed to that, right? Which is a great thing. But of course, the people in the Barbie group said they much prefer this to the Botticelli. Of course, it has Barbies. Oh, fashion dolls. Fashion. If you see these up close, you can see with the details how the eyes are changed. They don't look like they're painted on. They look like actual real eyes. I did, like I said, take the joints out. It's surprising with the Barbie dolls how anatomically correct they actually are when you really are looking for it. And I also, at first, I bought into this idea that, that Mattel's trying to, I have to say it, that they're trying to, portray women a certain way. And they want everybody to be really thin. But I found out that it's really for the clothing. The clothing and how it relates to our body. This is the same clothing you're putting on a Barbie doll. And it doesn't sit on the Barbie doll skin. It sits up. And that's why they have the long necks. And that's why they have the thin arms and the thin waists and the thin legs. Because if they make them normal size, it looks too big. When I started seeing the gap that's created between the sleeves and the arms and the legs, it's like, now I get it. Now I see why it was actually an educational, eye-opening experience for me. Because, I bought into all this other stuff. And it's like, when I started really looking at it, it's like, wait a minute. These are just clothing racks for girls to play with. That's all they are. And that was kind of interesting, but I wanted to keep the long necks so that, because it's like the female figures from Renaissance and pre-Renaissance. And I also lengthened the figures more than they really are on the Barbies so that they would, seem a little, not the guys, you want them to be strong and masculine, but with the women, I lengthened them so that they were more elegant, right? But anyway, you can see how the details are handled in some of those. And like I said, it takes some time. The model for the hair on this one is sitting right there. I used my wife's hair for that one. And so we now say she has Barbie hair. That's not a bad thing. So, let's see, what else do I have? I don't know if that's the last slide or not. Oh, that's a close-up of the Cupid else. That way you can see the details. You can't see it that large, obviously, in the painting, but then you can see literally each leaf is a portrait of that leaf. And that is the shiniest bottom in the history of Western art, right there. Anyway, I think that's it. Anybody have any questions?
For those of you who have wandered through our galleries, you probably noticed that our faculty are also represented in our permanent collection. And Kevin was very kind to donate a painting a few years ago to our collection that's on view, called Child's Play. And Child's Play it's a wonderful painting. It speaks volumes about the camaraderie among the faculty that have worked together for so long here at St. Petersburg College. And I would love, and we also have the preparatory drawings for the painting too. A couple of them are pictured on the wall label. But can you talk a little bit? I'm sorry, I don't have an image to show you, but
it's all right. It's a bunch of adults. Well, there are two kids playing in a sandbox. They're the only ones that look like they're sane. It's a bunch of adults that look like they're trying to be children. I see it as a faculty meeting. It's what it looks like to me. One of our faculty's in it. Actually, two. That's right. You guys are both in it. But that, I mean, it was just about how adults can behave like children, and I mean, that's all it is. There's really nothing deep to it. And how children can, sometimes be more adult than the adults. But it's based on a tree house, quote unquote, that is near our neighborhood, the swamp portion that's near our neighborhood, that the kids built. I thought kids didn't do that anymore. I don't think they do it anymore now, but at that time they did it, and it was actually a lot of fun. So, but it was actually a request from a gallery owner. He wanted me to do that painting, and I put it up there in his gallery in Indiana. He wanted it, and then I got it back. I'm like, you wanted this. So now I know never to do that again. Not unless they buy it. Yeah.
Start to work out when you go down to art loss, how's it accepted, one thing.
I mean, it depends. The realism's realism, and I think a lot of people discount realism no matter what you're doing. Even, you know, whether it's figure paintings or this stuff. Just because it's figured. I mean, they took the figure paintings more seriously, which I would expect. I mean, they're not supposed to see this as, you know, museum quality art, although I had a few museum owners that were, you know, really liked it. But the biggest thing that I see is I'm doing these because I thought that people would be able to relate to them and understand them better. But I am finding that I still have to explain them, even after I give them the title. I have one painting that is a rubber duck sitting in the middle of a big letter U. I had to explain that to people. I didn't think I would ever have to explain these to people. I'm finding that the art public has dumbed down so much over the years that it's to the point where they're too lazy to look at anything that for too long. You have to explain it to. If they don't get it right away, they don't want anything to do with it. Now, that's not everybody. You know, I mean, there are some sophisticated people. One of my best collectors, he just bought something. He loves stuff that he doesn't have to get right away. He likes to be able to think about stuff. But most people that we have interacted with, they want us to explain these paintings to them. And I don't know what to tell you. It's a lot of the, from what I've seen with contemporary art, it's going toward the be as gimmicky and in your face and simple as possible, and no depth. So I thought that the duck paintings were actually some of the more sophisticated, meaning-wise paintings when we were there the last 2 years, and that's saying something, because, you know, they're not really that, you know, as far as the concept goes, they're not that sophisticated. So, but yeah, it's becoming more and more.
Are you going next year?
No, unless there's a really good reason to, I don't want to ever go again. It's too expensive. You barely break even. And then other than selling stuff, whatever you sell there, what do you get from it afterwards? No shows, no commissions, no publications. What's the point? You know, it doesn't make any sense. In fact, if you want to see more of the lame duck paintings, they're at the Palm Harbor Library. I've sold more prints from our website from that show, which isn't saying much, than I did from Spectrum Miami last year, where we had 50,000 people come through. Because they, you know, I think they're just there to drink and be seen. Palm Harbor Library, people are there with their kids and taking their time, they're looking, they see you're local, you know, they have more of a connection. So it seems like the local venues may actually be better than the international ones for that. Oh, and the next one, by the way, my wife's making, or she has made outfits for the next painting with the dolls in it. It's going to be Fragonard's The Swing, with 2 of the male dolls and a female doll on a swing. So that'll be fun. We have to go find the landscape. But yeah. I mean, yeah. It just depends on what you mean by that. I mean, at the end, the layers get thinner and thinner. I don't know if any of it has, you know, like a watercolory transparent glaze, but I use real thin, more opaque kind of stuff, like with the flesh tones and stuff. I can't point to anything in that section. Oh yeah, I can. You see up by his elbow, those sort of bluish leaves, they were really dark. So I glazed over them with a blue gray so they look like they're further back. But otherwise, you know, a lot of it's direct painting and it depends, you know, glazes can be more opaque too. So, so yes and no. This, if yes, if you're talking about a glaze more liberally, no. If you're trying to be, you know, real specific about something that's like watercolor, no, probably not. Yep.
What's your preferred brand?
Golden Open. Golden Open acrylics, the only acrylic that stays wet on your palette. It'll stay wet on a glass palette for 2 days. 2 days. And when I made the mistake and used oil paint, I found that the earth tones dried overnight. So the open stays wet longer than that. It actually says on the container, if you make a layer that's more than a 1/16 of an inch thick, it will never dry, ever.
We're gonna have Kevin Yellow.
Yeah, like Yves Klein blue, right? No. Actually, my least favorite color, actually, truth be told, my favorite's black. No other questions? Yeah. Oh, the child's play? I don't know. Those paintings take anywhere from 200 to 400 hours that you spread out over months. So yeah, they take a long, long time. I heard another artist, I can't remember his name, he put it really well. He said, you cannot rush or fake this. It cannot. There's a lot of stuff that you can see other techniques where it can be faked or rushed. With realism like this, if you can't, it's just not possible. You can tell when somebody doesn't know what they're doing. And at the very least, I know people might laugh, oh, that's not real art, blah, blah, blah. But they'll never be able to say that it's not well painted. So, yeah, good luck, right? Takes a lot of cursing to do these. Lots. No, they're fun. They are fun, but there are some times where you just get sick and tired of painting orange tree leaves, right? It just gets old. But you soldier through it. I have students that can't, it'd be surprised if they can get past 8 hours on a drawing or a painting. And oh, this is taking too long. You talk to me when you spent 400 hours on that. And you tell me that's taking too long. Well, but that's you. Well, you got to compete with me when you get out there. Good luck. Although it's not, they won't have to try too hard because they'll just sell stuff cheaper. Nobody can tell the difference. All right. Any other questions? Yeah. Off the last sales, probably. Seriously. I mean, we've gotten to the point where we've had to practically give them away to sell them just to make more space. But yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. If they sell for the retail price, it's fine, you know, or even the gallery price, the half I get's okay. But when I start looking at what somebody earns at McDonald's and say, well, yeah. I don't know. So, yeah, but that's another discussion right there. No other questions. All right. Thank you, guys.
Guys, please help yourself to some snacks and thank you for coming.